Welcome back to the Newark Museum of Art's virtual Dino Fest. Today we'll continue to learn about dinosaurs from experts like Bob Walters, coming up next, of Walters and Kissinger Studio, where he and others create paleontological life reconstructions, dinosaur illustrations, and prehistoric life sculptures. But before we begin, let's see what's coming up in our dino-filled virtual community day. Next after lunch, from 1 to 2, we'll see bones and fossils up close with Dinosaurs Rock, as they bring authentic museum quality specimens right to your screen for a fact-filled and entertaining Jurassic journey, filled with an up-close view of dinosaurs and prehistoric fossils spanning millions of years. Feel free to send questions through the chat. Then from 2:30 to 3:30, get a virtual tour of dinosaur exhibitions with the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences. Explore exhibits from North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences and a fascinating live tour from the comfort of your couch meets full-size mounted dinosaur skeletons, and learn what they have revealed about our planet's past. At 4 p.m., meet prehistoric animals in the modern world with Eyes of the Wild. We'll see live animals that trace their evolution over millions of years from dinosaurs, and meet modern animals that live almost unchanged since. Bring your questions and be prepared to be amazed. And then the only way to wrap up our prehistoric day, join us from 5 to 6 p.m. for a dino party, a dino puppet show, and a dance party? Don't be a fossil. Join us and shake your tails off with Imagine That. For more about today's events, visit our Facebook page. To register for Zoom sessions, use the links on our Facebook page, or search the Newark Museum website. It's on our webpage under DinoFest. Now, I'd like to introduce our guest, Bob Walters.
How you doing?
Good. Sorry, a little things are out of screen. There we go. So Bob, you are a dino artist. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Bob Walters. On screen, you see a picture that I drew when I was about 5 years old. It's a drawing of Plateosaurus. I was influenced by the mural that Rudolf Zallinger did. It was reproduced in Life magazine when I was a little kid. He made Plateosaurus blue with red stripes, so did I. And this is proof that you can get better. I have definitely improved over the years. As you can see, this is the picture of Plateosaurus that was done for the Academy of Natural Sciences here in Philadelphia for their dinosaur exhibit, Discovering Dinosaurs. And for nostalgia's sake, since we don't know what color these animals were, I made it blue with red stripes again, like the childhood drawing, just a little throwback. But you can see I've improved. Here is a cover for the Complete Dinosaur from Indiana University Press, showing 2 giganotosaurs menacing a sauropod named Andosaurus. And we worked with Professor Rodolfo Correa in Argentina, which is where this animal was found, to reconstruct the animal as accurately as we could, but also to reconstruct the landscape as accurately as we could. There are a lot of plant fossils from this area, and we included the information about those to try and give the landscape the correct feel. This is Pachycephalosaurus from the museum in Pittsburgh, the Carnegie Museum of Natural History. This is a very large mural. It's about 90 feet across, and it was done using digital techniques, but also traditional media. And Pachycephalosaurus is a armored dinosaur. It has armored head with a lot of decorative spikes and things sticking off of it. And we're really not quite sure what they were used for, but the skull is very, very thick. So some scientists think that they banged their heads together in territorial battles.
And for our last slide of your work, oh, that was our last slide. I thought we had a T-Rex. Not a T-Rex, a Triceratops. But let's
Now, what I'm going to draw today are 2 heads of 2 different dinosaurs. I'm going to do Ceratosaurus nasicornis, which is a large carnivorous dinosaur from the late Jurassic period, about 150 million years ago. And we're going to start with simple shapes. And I want to make a point to both the kids and adults watching that you can draw anything starting with simple geometric shapes. In fact, you can build an entire universe. That's what actually sort of happened. Now you need a pencil to start with. And this is going to be your preliminary drawing. And it doesn't have to be perfect. A preliminary drawing means that this is a rough sketch. So, and if you think you've made a mistake, you really don't like it, you have an eraser on the end of the pencil, and that will erase what you want. You can start over. Draw a large oval or egg shape to start. Then draw a straight line like this, about halfway across that oval. This is going to be the skull, the top of the dinosaur's head. This back area here will be the back of the lower jaw. Draw a line like this. It looks like sort of like a thin slice of pizza. I'm hoping everyone is caught up, but if not, take your time. Now, Ceratosaurus needs an eye. Just draw a round circle like that. And Ceratosaurus has a sort of eyebrow, which you'll see on lizards and crocodiles. It has a technical name. It's called a superciliary arch, but there will not be a test. So you don't have to memorize anatomical terms. Now, Ceratosaurus in front of its eye has a kind of crest. We're just going to draw a sort of pyramid shape, very simply. This will be altered a little bit when we get to the final inking. Draw a curved line here behind the head. That'll be the top of the animal's neck. Now, Ceratosaurus needs to breathe, so we're going to make a little sort of dot here. That will be the nostril. And another little round oval dot back here. That'll be where its ear hole, called the auditory opening. These animals did not have ears that extend out of their bodies the way mammals do. They do not have what are called pinna. Now, inside the mouth, draw a little half circle. This is where two very powerful muscles crisscross. They are the temporalis and the pterygoideus. Once again, there'll be no test. You don't have to memorize these. Ceratosaurus, very interestingly, on the end of its snout, has a relatively large nose horn. In fact, its species name is Ceratosaurus nasicornis, meaning nose horn. Now let me draw this first. This will be the lower jaw. Just draw a sort of curved line that goes back like this. And underneath here is the throat, or bottom of the neck. Just a curved line like that. And remember, if you don't like something you've drawn, you can use the eraser, the magic eraser. Now I'm going to take my marker, my black marker. So get out your black marker, or if it's some of the color, that'll be fine too. And I'm going to draw a circle where the eye is, redraw that circle. Inside that circle, you can draw a round dark dot. You can leave a little bit of white on if you want to show a highlight. That'll be the animal's pupil. We don't know what these animals' eyes looked like. We suspect they probably looked like the eyes on modern predatory birds, since birds are directly descended from dinosaurs. Now, Ceratosaurus needs an upper eyelid. So draw a curved line above the eye and a curved line below the eye for the lower eyelid. I'm going to put some wrinkles in under this, which you sometimes see on lizards. Or maybe it was just up too late. But you don't have to put them in if you don't want to. Now above the eye, I'm going to make these sort of raised shapes. You see this to some extent on the above the eye of crocodiles and alligators. And since they're closely related to dinosaurs, I'm going to take the liberty, the artistic license, of putting it on Ceratosaurus. We do not have skin samples from Ceratosaurus. I'm going to draw in the nostril and place a little curved line behind it. And do the same thing with the auditory opening. I'm going to draw the back of the animal's head. Let me go first and then follow after me. It more or less follows the line of your egg shape. Now I'm going to draw the snout. It's going to change shape a little bit. So let me draw it first and let me finish and then copy what I've done. It dips down a little bit here. Draw the nose horn on. And the crest in front of the eye. It has only one nose horn in the center of the snout, but above each eye, on each side, it has those pointed crests. We don't know what these were used for. Probably not for defense. So it is thought that they are perhaps used for identification, so these animals could recognize each other. They may have been colored, we don't know. But if you're going to color in your drawing, if you want to make them a color, or even a bright color, feel free. That's called an artistic license. This is the neck. Now I'm going to draw the shape of the jaw, and it changes a little bit. So let me draw it first and then copy what I've done. It dips down a little bit. I'm going to draw in those muscles. If you look at an alligator crocodile, when they open their mouths, you can see this muscle very clearly when they open their mouths, and you can see how thick and powerful it is. Lower jaw. I'm going to do the bottom of a lower jaw. I'm doing these usually in one stroke. You do not have to do it in one stroke. If it takes you several lines like that, that's fine. And I'm going to draw the throat. I'm going to give Ceratosaurus what's called a dewlap. We don't know for sure whether Ceratosaurus had this, if this is an artistic license. But we do see a lot of lizards that do have this, although crocodiles are more closely related to dinosaurs than modern lizards. Give it a few wrinkles. And many modern lizards, this dewlap, it can be brightly colored. And once again, for communication from male to female or for territorial display. This is the fun part. I'm going to draw in Ceratosaurus's teeth. This is a meat-eating dinosaur. It had very long teeth. The teeth curved backward. It's called recurved. And they had serrations on them like a steak knife, for the very same reason that a steak knife has those serrations or points along the edge of the blade. I'll do these first. Let me finish, and then we'll give some time to draw these in, because that takes some real time. Ceratosaurus has very long teeth. There we go. You would not want to meet up with this critter. There is no light at the end of that tunnel. I'm going to quickly draw in a little bit of tongue. You don't have to if you don't want to. It's not entirely necessary. Just a little bit showing. Now I'm going to add some details like wrinkles behind the lower jaw and coming off the dewlap. And I'm going to put some behind the head. I'm going to put one behind here. And I'm going to draw in the shape of a muscle that's right here. And you can see it very clearly if you look at modern crocodiles and alligators. It is very obviously there. So it's probably a good bet on this one. There we go. Give people a little time to catch up. Ceratosaurus was not the largest of the carnivores from the late Jurassic period. Allosaurus is the biggest one, but its head is not as interesting to draw since it does not have a nose horn. It just has the crests in front of the eyes. And once upon a time, people wondered if these two animals are related. They're both predatory dinosaurs, but they're not that closely related. Now, a lot of dinosaur illustrations show carnivorous dinosaurs with sort of dragon bumps or spikes down the back. As a general rule, we don't know that they were there. But in the case of Ceratosaurus, we do know that they were actually there. These bumps have actually been found on the skeleton. So I'm going to draw them in. And let me draw them first before you draw them in. I'm going to add some decorative scales above the back of the mouth. Whereas we know that these bumps are down the back of the animal, these decorative scales, once again, are an educated guess. I'm going to add some texture to the crests. And to the nose horn. Now from here on in, you can add as many scales as you want to. Put some down the back. Put some wrinkles in here. Oh, and don't forget to sign your work. That's important. So write your name. If you want to, you can put a little circle of a C in front of your name to protect it from being plagiarized. And you can also take your drawing when we're done here, and you can color it in. And we've seen other cases, lots of kids have colored in their drawings with interesting color patterns, interesting choices of color. So that's Ceratosaurus nasicornis.
I have a question, Bob.
Yes.
If you were to be so inspired to draw in a background for this creature, what sort of area of the world would it be living in? A temperate area, a tropical area?
It would be a mixture of we would consider it tropical, semi-tropical. And it would live in floodplain, because that's what it's known from, the Morrison Formation. It was a relatively well-watered environment. It had a lot of very large trees. At this point, there were no modern deciduous trees. It would all be conifers and cycads, and tree ferns and ferns. These animals walk through what has been described as fern prairies. So it'd be like ferns carpeting the ground, basically as far as the eye could see, with very large, very tall trees forming forests along the edges of these waterways. But it wasn't particularly swampy.
Wonderful. So we'll give another minute for those drawing to finish up, and then we're going to move on to another dinosaur drawing. Is that correct?
Yes, and we're going to do my favorite horned dinosaur, since it's the one I grew up with when I was a kid. It's Triceratops, and it's a bit harder to draw than Ceratosaurus. So it'll take a little bit longer, but we've done this before, and the results have generally been really good when we see the drawings sent in. They look really good. Lots of people think they can't draw, but actually you can. It doesn't mean you're going to become Pablo Picasso or Michelangelo, but you can draw, especially using simple shapes. And by the way, that's what the professional artists do. We start out with simple shapes and very simple drawings, and then work our way up from there. We don't try to put every detail in right away, which I tried to do when I was a kid, of course.
Yes, but that's why you're here today, to guide us through. So everybody at home, if you'd like to keep going, this is a great time to get a nice clean piece of paper, start out fresh, and get ready for Triceratops.
Triceratops. Yeah, Triceratops is one of the most famous dinosaurs ever. And its name means three-horned face. It has long horns above the eyes and a short horn on the snout. It also has a beak like a parrot, and it was a herbivorous dinosaur. It does not have sharp teeth. Behind the beak, it has row after row after row of relatively small grinding teeth. And it couldn't really chew as we understand chewing, but it could grind up vegetables.
So before we get started, we had one question from the chat, and maybe you'd like to answer it. Question from Frank was, why does Tyrannosaurus rex have small arms?
We actually don't know the answer to that question. It has very short arms. In some movies, they've shown it like scratching its chin. It couldn't even do that. It could not reach its lower jaw particularly well. The arms are so short. But here's the weird thing about Tyrannosaurus's arms. Despite how short they were not useless. We know this by studying the bones. And we found that the arms were relatively heavily muscled, so they must have been used for something. One thought is that after an animal had been dispatched and it was eating the animal, it would use them to hang on to the animal to steady this very large and massive chunk of meat and hold it down while it, well, gnawed at it. Oh, and it also has only 2 claws. Most predatory dinosaurs have 3. Tyrannosaurus rex and its relatives have only 2. Another oddity of tyrannosaurids.
Thank you so much. So I hope that answers your question, Frank. And if you have any other questions, feel free to add them to the chats. And I'm excited to see what Triceratops will look like.
Okay, take your pencil, and I'm going to draw an oval right about there. Don't make it fill the whole page, because Triceratops has a very large bony frill behind the head. Now, Triceratops needs an eye, relatively large eye. And it needs a mouth, but it has a short, relatively short mouth. It does not have a long reptilian mouth, like Ceratosaurus. Just to about there. Now we're going to give Triceratops the eyebrow arch and nostril. I'm not going to put the ear hole in yet. Now behind that oval, draw a curved line up like that. And take your time with this. This is a more complicated drawing than doing the relatively simple Ceratosaurus. Now I'm going to do this hopefully in one stroke. You can do it in more than one stroke, and let me finish it. This is a relatively complicated shape. I'm going to show Triceratops back up here. And Triceratops has a horn on its snout, like that. And it has 2 horns, one over each eye. So I'm going to draw this. Let me draw this first. And remember, this is just a sketch. So this drawing of the horn does not have to be perfect yet. We're going to perfect it when you do your inking. To show there's another horn on the other side, I'm going to draw another line. Now I'm going to draw the snout, and I'm going to bring it down a little bit like that. Now remember, this is just a sketch, so it does not have to be perfect at all. I'm going to draw the lower jaw. And I'm going to put a little neck shape in here. This is the throat. And I'm going to put in a sort of wedge shape right here. And when I do the final inking, we will connect the frill to this flange that's actually stuck out from the face out to the side like this. By the way, we're not quite sure exactly what these frills on the horned dinosaurs were exactly for. They're not made out of the thickest bone, and they're highly vascular, means they have a lot of blood vessels in them, so they probably were not specifically for defense. They're possibly for display. And one of the top scientist who studies horned dinosaurs, Dr. Peter Dodson, who I'm working on a book with for Johns Hopkins University Press. That's a little plug there. He said that when you have a billboard that big, you're probably going to use it for something. So these areas may have had markings on them or have been brightly colored to display to other Triceratops and possibly to warn off predators. Now I'm going to draw in very roughly the shape of the parrot-like beak. And it probably would have looked very much like a parrot's beak. And there were many beaked dinosaurs. Back in here is where all those rows of teeth were, but they wouldn't show. We're going to shorten this mouth a bit when we do the final inking. Now I'm going to start doing the eye. There we go. And do the same thing here you did on the Ceratosaurus, just put a dot in here. If you want to put a highlight on it, you can, but you don't have to. Just a dot will do very nicely. We need the eyelid. That's a curved line above the eyeball. And another one below. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before, put some lines in here. I'll do the nostril. I haven't put the ear opening in yet because it's dictated by this shape and fits in here. And there's a question as to why it would have been behind inside the frill. You would think that that would make it hard of hearing, but it's been suggested by people who've done acoustic studies on the skull that the skull itself may actually have picked up sound vibrations and amplified them, increasing the animal's ability to hear. We can't prove that, but the tests are very suggestive. I'm going to draw the beak. Let me draw that first. There's a curved line like that. And another one like this. Now I'm going to draw this. Let me show that again. And take your time drawing it. This is definitely more complicated.
And question from the chat is, why does a Triceratops have 3 horns? Do we know?
It's probably a mixture of 2 things. Defense obviously would be a very, very good defensive weapon against, say, Tyrannosaurus rex. But we also suspect that these ceratopsian dinosaurs would lock horns in territorial battles, as we see with deer, with big longhorn sheep. You see them lock their antlers together and rock back and forth. We suspect that these animals may have done that. And the reason for that is how their shoulder girdle, their forearms are formed. They could actually plant themselves very solidly. And also their neck vertebra are fused. So the neck movement is very limited, but it would provide a tremendous amount of strength for a head that's rotating and rocking back and forth with the horns locked with another Triceratops. So hopefully that answers the question.
It did for me, thank you.
Now I'm going to draw up to there. And I'm going to draw the horn. And there you go. I'm going to put a little line here couple lines there. I'm going to draw in the mouth to about there. And I'm going to do the lower jaw. You can pretty much just follow your egg shape. Now, Triceratops has a matching beak, as parrots do, on the lower jaw. I'm going to draw it in one stroke. You don't have to do it all in one stroke. And let me finish it and then copy what I've drawn. And as you've ever dealt with parrots or even a parakeet, you know that the beaks are actually very sharp and you want to avoid them. They can inflict, as I know from experience, they can inflict some damage. Now I'm going to draw in the first horn. And I'm going to show where it attaches, make a curved line. And then the second horn. Take your time with this. Let me do it first and then take your time with it. It's going to take you a little while. There are many other kinds of horned dinosaur too, with all sorts of arrays of horns on their frills, different arrangements of horns on the snout. And some of them lived pretty near each other, so they probably had these different arrangements so the different species could tell each other apart. Also, Triceratops is one of the largest of the horned dinosaurs. Now I'm going to draw the frill. Draw that line up to there. There's a line that follows back from here where the horn attaches and goes like this. We're not quite sure how much it would actually have shown, but it probably would have shown to some extent. I'm going to draw the back of the frill. I'm doing this all in one stroke, so follow what I do, but let me finish first, because this is all one piece. I'm going to ink in the neck with a little bit of a dewlap on it. That's easy to do. Now behind, in here, is where I'm going to put the auditory opening. Draw a little curved line beside that. I'm also going to draw the back in while we're doing it. That's pretty easy. Now I have your basic Triceratops form. I'm going to add some wrinkles under the neck. And behind the mouth. And this is all muscle in here. Those muscles were used to grind the food up. I'm going to put some wrinkles behind there. Now, fully adult Triceratops generally did not have these sort of arrowhead wedge shapes sticking off the frill. But immature and juvenile Triceratops did, and it's fun to have them on there. So I'm going to draw them on. But let me do all of them first. There are quite a few of them. They're called epoccipitals. But as I said with Ceratosaurus, there will not be a test. And another one here on the end of this wedge shape. What they were for, once again, we do not know. Possibly, again, for display, but that begs the question why they seem to either drop off or be reabsorbed on the fully adult Triceratops. It's a question for when you grow up as paleontologists for you to answer, because we have lots of questions still to be answered, like lots. We also have decent skin samples from Triceratops, and the skin looks like sort of saucer-shaped plates covering it with a kind of spike sticking off of it. And it would have been probably a pretty good armor protection from Triceratops being attacked from the rear or the side. So this animal would have provided a very formidable opponent for Tyrannosaurus rex. And I've done it too. Everyone shows Tyrannosaurus rex facing off with and fighting Triceratops. But really, if Tyrannosaurus rex wanted to stay healthy, it probably would, unless it was real hungry or Triceratops was sick or hurt, it would probably avoid Triceratops. There are other animals around in the late Cretaceous, hadrosaurs, AKA duck-billed dinosaurs, that have, other than large numbers, large herds of these animals, no basic protection whatsoever from a Tyrannosaurid. And he probably chowed down on those rather than fight it out with Triceratops or other horned dinosaurs or some of the other armored dinosaurs, who would have been pretty tough customers for T-Rex to take on. Possibly could have done it. We have found a Triceratops frill with a hole in it, which is just about Tyrannosaurus rex tooth shaped. So the confrontation probably happened occasionally, or that Tyrannosaurus was eating an already dead Triceratops. I'm going to put a line here. There's a muscle right there. And I'm going to add some texture to the beak. And a little bit to the horn. We do not know how smooth some of these things were, whether they had any striations in them, whether they were very, very smooth or had some texture. We simply do not know at this point. I'm actually going to draw up here. You don't have to draw this, but I'm going to draw the scutes or armor plates on Triceratops would be round and then sort of have a point sticking off the center. And they covered most of the body. Some people thought maybe it supported quills, but that seems a little far-fetched. But they certainly would have provided a great deal of defense along the sides of the animal and along the tail. It's been suggested that possibly on Triceratops' tail, there might have been elongated scales or quills, because a related animal, much earlier animal called Psittacosaurus, has elongated quills down its tail. So if you want to draw a body of Triceratops and put them on, feel free to do so, though we have no direct evidence that that is the case. We just have a related animal that had that on its tail. I'm going to copyright this. When you color this in, if you want to, again, I'm going to make the suggestion based on Peter Dodson's suggestion that you could put marking on here. I'm just going to sketch in a sort of round marking, which would be the same on the other side. Maybe with a spot in the center of it, which you see on the wings of moths and things. But you could make it any color you wanted to, or you can make the frill a different color. We also don't know if the horns had different colors. On birds, on bird beaks, on the parrots, you usually see them basically dead black or very, very dark gray. But there are other birds that have brightly colored beaks, so we don't know.
Well, we have a question about the beaks. Our viewer Rena is wondering why Triceratops would have a beak. Is it similar to the same reasons birds would have a beak?
Yes, and very much the reason it looks like a parrot beak, it probably functioned the same way, and that is to grab and cut food and pull it off the branches. The beak was probably pretty sharp. And as I said, if you've ever run afoul of a parakeet's beak, you'll find out very quickly they're sharp.
Wonderful. The same question I had before is if someone were to draw in the background for this, the landscape in which it would be living, where would that be?
It would look quite different from the landscape that Ceratosaurus inhabited. When you get to the late Cretaceous, as with the slide you showed of the armored dinosaur, you saw there were fan palms in that picture. There's low bushes that look like very much like modern bushes. There would be flowering plants, magnolias. There would be sycamores. There would be white pine. It would not be quite as wet an environment. It would look like a cross between Louisiana and a Pennsylvania broadleaf forest. You would recognize this landscape. It would look much more familiar to you than the sort of alien landscape that you would see in the late Jurassic.
Thank you.
There would also be willows. Oh, and it appears that there were buttercups.
So now we can find out if Triceratops like butter or not.
Promise. Yes, this landscape would look much more familiar to you. You would be walking through it, and it would look like someplace that you recognized, except other than the very large dinosaurs that came wandering out of it. You'd feel like, whoa, what are they doing here? A lot of hadrosaurs, a lot of horned dinosaurs, but also a lot of smaller animals. There were plenty of small mammals running around in the understory of these places. The largest mammal was only the size of a badger, but that's big for a Mesozoic mammal. It's called Didelphodon.
Then we have another question related to Triceratops is, do we know if Triceratops had a crop like modern birds for digesting food?
We don't know. It's possible that they did, but we simply don't know. We don't have really good soft tissue material. We have skin impressions and we have the bones, but soft tissue is very, very rarely preserved in any detail at all. There are a few examples, but we simply do not know the answer.
Once again, more to find out.
We have much more to find out. So, hey kids, grow up to be paleontologists, get on the ball and find the answers, because we don't have them yet. There's lots of stuff to be found out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Bob, for joining us today. Thanks for showing us the steps to draw these amazing creatures. Thanks for sharing your expertise and experience and loads of information.
My advice is keep on drawing.
Yeah, so and on that note, we're excited to see your drawings today. So feel free to share your dino drawings on social media, just hashtag Newark Museum Art and hashtag DinoFest. And that way others can see what you've created and keep on drawing. This is just the first step. to be more inspired, be sure to join us at 1 p.m. to see bones and fossils up close with Dinosaurs Rock. And to watch anything you've missed from today's events, visit our Facebook page. And then to register for Zoom sessions coming up, also join us on our Facebook page. You can go to the event and click on the link to register. And then once again, mark your calendars for Saturday, October 10th for our next community day. Game On, a day of virtual events on art, technology, and gaming for the whole family. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you so much, Bob, for showing us how to draw dinosaurs so wonderfully. And we look forward to seeing you at our next session. Take care.
Easy.